is crappy. And I also say that the show brings out the disgust of aspects of my life now. That's what I'll tell you. It was probably filmed in, I don't know, 2003, 2004. Probably at the turn of the century. I don't even know. So the news channels in America warned of juvenile delinquents, teenagers in cars who drove dangerously and lived for kicks. The Cold War was going on, a war between Russia and its allies in America and its allies in which nobody dropped bombs or fired bullets because a dropped bomb could tip the world into a third world war, a nuclear war from which it would never return. Think of the Cold War. The Senate was building bills to root out hidden communists and taking steps to stamp out comic books. And whole families were gathering around the television in the evenings. Now I wonder, thinking about astrology, obviously Pluto would have an influence, but I would say that the sign that Pluto would be under would be Libra. Pluto is trying to destruct the sign that it is under. So I think that a good sign to have Pluto under would be, I don't know, Virgo? But anyway, I have it in Sagittarius. So the joke in the 1950s went that in the old days, you could tell who was home by seeing if the lights were on. Now you know who was home by seeing who had the lights off. The televisions were small and the pictures were in black and white, and you needed to turn off the light to get a good picture. This goes on, thought Ray Bradbury. Nobody will read books anymore, said Fahrenheit 451 began. He had written a short story once called The Pedestrian, about a man who had inoculated by place. You can, after we stopped simply walking, that story became part of the world he was building, and 17-year-old Clovis McLean became a pedestrian in a world where nobody walks. So, nobody walks. What if firemen burned down houses instead of setting them, Bradbury thought. And now he had his way into the story. He had a fireman named Guy Montag who saved a book from the flames instead of burning. I think of why we're not reading this particular book. Why we're listening to it instead of reading it. Well, what does it have to do with? What is it talking about right here? If only books could be saved, he thought. If you destroy all the physical books, how can you save them? Bradbury wrote a story called The Fireman. His story demanded to be longer. The world he had created demanded more. So, I think that we're going to skip ahead to page XV. It says, a young reader finding this book today or the day after tomorrow is going to have to imagine first a past and then a future that belongs to that past. But still, the heart of the book remains untouched, and the question Bradbury raises remains as valid and important. Why do we need the things in books, the poems, the essays, the stories. Authors disagree. Authors are human and fallible and foolish. Stories are lies, after all. Tales of people who never existed and the things that they actually happened in them. Why should we read them? Why should we kill? Now, the thing that it's talking about here is different than Night by Elie Wiesel, because that is a true story, documented of what happened. The teller and the tale are very different. So while the stories have to do with the tale, the audiobooks have to do with who's narrating, who's telling the tale. So we must not forget that. So I'm kind of thinking of this as an exposure to another form of reading. That's all it is. Ideas, written ideas, are special. They are the way we transmit our stories and our thoughts from one generation to the next. I think that in this day and age, what would really, really turn books on is if you could actually, and I mean, and I'm 100% literal when I say actually go into and escape into the book. Because if you do that, a picture and a setting and a scene and experience is worth 1,000 words. Really, it is. But so anyway, and our thoughts from one generation to the next. If we lose them, we lose our shared history. We lose much of what makes us human. And fiction gives us empathy, puts us inside the minds of other people, gives us the gift of seeing the world through their eyes. Fiction is a lie that tells us true things over and over. So similar themes of those things. So we're going to skip down to the next paragraph. It says, this is a book about caring for things. It's a love letter to books. It's a love letter to books, but I think just as much it's a love letter to people, and a love letter to the world of where Ray Bradbury had grown up, in which he immortalized as Greentown in his book of childhood. So if someone tells a story, what a story is about, they are probably right. If they tell you that it is all that the story is about, they're probably wrong. So any of these things I've told you about Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury's remarkable book of warning, will be incomplete. It is about these things, but it is about more than that. It is about what you find between the lines, between the pages. So in parentheses it says, as a final note, in these days when we worry and we argue about whether e-books are real books, I love how broad Ray Bradbury's definition of a book is at the end, when he points out that we should not judge our books just by their covers, and that some books exist between covers, that they are perfectly people-shaped. So, the quote is, if they give you little paper, write the other way. By Joanne Landon Jimenez. I was doing my best though. So, officially, the preface, the prologue, introduction to this book, to what we're going to be getting into. Now, I know, you've already started it before I made the executive decision not to. We're not going to skip over that. This will be a new beginning, because I want to see to it that we get this and a couple other things done, so that when I wake up in 2021, I feel fresh and clean and more completed. Now, there's several books that I went through that I have faint memories of, that I, tasted and, tried and, just previewed, but didn't really actually get into. And there will be 4 of those books down memory lane that we're going to be going back, that we read before and listened to, so that I can feel like a better person, better, more focused frame of mind and feeling, and all of you can feel the same. Okay? So, actually, you know what, that's all that we're going to be getting into today. So, you don't have to go through page by page and look at, 1 through 67. So, 1 through 30, I'd say, today. 30 or, or more than that for today of, listening to it. Okay, so that is, that's all for that. Now I'm going to, we're going to go into the other room to do others, and I'm going to make a clipboard of something. Okay, so give me time to do that.